Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I am Patrick Clore, Head of Customer Insights with GiveSmart by Community Brands, and we're thrilled to have each and every one of you here joining our conversation today. Today is the 13th episode in our Outside the Room fundraising success series, where our sole hope is to inspire each other to continue innovating by examining those who have done it so well. And today we are joined by the talented Kylie Johnson from Pencil, based out of Nashville, Tennessee, who's graciously given up her time to share their story. And in getting stuff ready, we learned that Pencil stands for Public Education Needs Community Involvement and Leadership. And I, for one, am very excited that today we can provide some education to our community on what all they've done. So Kylie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And we are also joined by GiveSmart's own Susanna Crawford, our community manager, and Matt Carrier, our senior customer success manager. We're both deeply experienced fundraising consultants and give up some time to share their insights. Matt and Susanna, thanks to both of you for being here as well.
Happy to be here.
Thanks, great to be here.
So a little bit of process and procedure to kick things off today. In the chat resource, you will see that we're putting in some different assets we wanted to share that no matter where you might be in your fundraising journey can help accelerate your impact and further the causes that you all work so very hard for. And we'll get rolling today really with a quick poll check on how you're feeling. So we've done the same question month over month as we've done each of these. And so as it stands today, September 10th, how confident are you that your organization is going to hit your goals this year? Not so hot, we're making strides, we're going to get there, or hey, we may even surpass it. And while we're giving folks time to weigh in on the poll, Kylie, at a high level, could you share your mission and some of the things that Pencil does in the Nashville area?
Of course. So as Patrick mentioned, Pencil stands for Public Education Needs Community Involvement and Leadership. We are a nonprofit based in Nashville, and our mission is to link community resources to Metro Nashville public schools so that our students have the resources they need to succeed. So we do this in a variety of ways, but essentially we partner businesses and community groups and other organizations to bridge these resource gaps in metro schools that directly impact day-to-day learning. So that's through our LP Pencil Box, which is a teacher supply store free for teachers to come, through our pencil partnerships where we connect students with business partners one-on-one to talk about career pathways. And we also have a reading program as well, where we have mentors read with students once a week for an entire semester. And it's just a great way to connect the community to our students.
That is, every single thing about that is awesome. And that's some impressive work you guys are doing. All right, and I think we got the results populated here. That'll be on the screen. So Matt, I know you're talking to customers every day looking at this sort of stuff. So how does what we're seeing that the people have entered today kind of compare with what you've seen over the past few weeks and months here?
Yeah, this is pretty on trend. So, the biggest contributor here is that we're getting there. And I think that, just from what I hear from colleagues and, myself talking to clients is that, there is certainly, things are not usual in 2020, but we're figuring out a way to put some stability back. We'll talk to Kylie about what she's done and what her group has done and through other webinars that we've heard. But, clients are, really making it happen right here. So the tenacity is there. Donors are willing to give and bid. So this is really pretty much on trend from what, I'm hearing, seeing, and from what others have heard and stuff.
No, that is great, and we appreciate it. So we got a lot of content to cover today, so we're gonna jump right in, and we'll be covering how Kylie and Pencil made breakfast impactful and filled the night with some virtual music. Matt will rejoin us near the end with some intriguing data insights that we've seen throughout the platform, and all three of our panelists have agreed to stay for about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the call for a question and answer. So please, you can send in questions throughout the conversation using the chat option. Don't hesitate to send in multiple, as we'll compile throughout the conversation, as well as we always have folks ask. So we will be sending a recording of today's call with any resources or information that we cover. So if you do have to log on or log off rather, don't worry, we will make sure to get it out to you guys. So to kickstart us here, Susanna, can you and Kylie walk us through some of the different things that they've been doing, starting with this impact breakfast here?
Absolutely. I am so excited to jump into this, specifically starting with this community impact breakfast, as it's not as common of an event type, but it's an event type that really any organization could do. So to kind of set the stage here, Kylie, can you walk us through what the purpose of a community impact breakfast is and what this was to Pencil?
Yeah, so several years ago, we had a luncheon that was one of our biggest fundraisers, but it ended up not kind of growing stale, and it was not as successful as we had hoped. So our board came up with the idea to do a fundraising breakfast at the beginning of the school year, since back to school time is so important to us, and everybody's always looking on how to get involved in schools during the breakfast or during back to school time. So the purpose of the breakfast is to raise awareness about what Pencil does and how people can get involved, and really just introduce people to our work. And it is also one of our biggest fundraisers. You'll hear about the bigger one later, but this is more of a fundraiser to introduce new donors to Pencil. So it was awesome this year. I look forward to sharing more about that in a little bit, but it's more of a introduction to Pencil, celebration of the new school year kind of thing.
Perfect. That's great. And can you tell us a little bit about, so we have our sponsors, and we should never be, can never go without thanking the sponsors here. And sponsorships are huge for this type of event because individuals come free. So can you tell us a little bit about the differences in sponsorship package for an in-person impact breakfast versus a virtual impact breakfast?
Yeah, so what you see on the screen isn't really much different than our in-person benefits. It was more of a conversation with the sponsors because we were originally planning this breakfast as an in-person event. So what sponsors were originally receiving did have in-person benefits, and really that's just more screen time, more signage. So the biggest difference was including the sponsors in press releases and more digital promotion, and with it being a virtual event, we had 10 times the amount of digital promotion than we typically do. So that's not listed here, but it's definitely some of the conversations that we had with sponsors when we switched to a virtual event instead of an in-person event, and everybody was super excited about that it was more it was just another way for them to get their name out there and their logo recognition, but everybody was very responsive to that.
That is awesome that it sounds like you had positive conversations moving into this virtual realm. And I'm curious, you just mentioned some different types of digital recognition. Can you list off a few of those? What were some of those that you offered?
Yeah, so social media, obviously, but we communicated a lot more with our attendees and table hosts and table guests and newsletter folks a lot more than we typically do regarding the breakfast. So anything we sent out regarding the breakfast had some kind of promotional material featuring our sponsors. And then for like the Dean's List sponsor, it's a sponsorship for one person or one company, and they had the option to provide digital promotional materials to our guests. So in the final thank you, here's a coupon to blank, or here's a, we'd love for you to visit our blank. So it just gave us a lot more flexibility with how much recognition we gave them, because usually you don't want to bombard people too much with emails and digital communication before an in-person event, but with a virtual event, it was kind of part of the event, so it was definitely fun.
Very cool.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And I'm curious, Kylie, is in talking to your sponsors after the fact, did they feel they got their money's worth? Or, we've had people say, hey, because we have an unlimited reach and we can do things digitally, that the impressions a sponsor is getting are more than if it was just a fixed X amount of people in a room. So in some of the debrief you guys did with sponsors after the fact, were they happy about the spend and view it was worthwhile on their end?
Yes, everybody was very positive about their experience. experience. I think something that is also beneficial with that is the tangible value taken out of the sponsorship is much less than it typically is, because there is not necessarily the expense that there usually is, which I think also didn't hurt when we were having the conversation with sponsors. But really, no one was upset about switching it to a virtual event. They were all super understanding and excited that we were still hosting the event and excited to be a part of it. They were able to invite more than 6 people, and so people loved that. And it was just a great way to spread the word a little bit further than we usually are able to do.
No, that is great to hear.
Yeah, and keeping with that trend, you just mentioned that sponsors were allowed to invite people, and then you also had table host, and you turned this into a virtual table host. So once you have the sponsors locked in, you need to really fill that, I guess, virtual room to say. So can you talk a little bit about table hosts, and first just kind of what is their job during this event?
Yeah, so table hosts recruit, it depends on how big the table. This year we were going to have 6 people at a table just to keep everybody spaced, but recruit 6 to 8 guests that really don't know too much about Pencil, but they think would connect to our mission and be willing to donate or get involved in some way. So we start with our board members. They are awesome table hosts and always super willing to participate as a table host. And then we always have event chairs. So our event chairs also reached out to their network of people. And because this ended up being a virtual event and we were able to market it as a virtual event, we received a lot more diverse table hosts than we typically do, because usually we have our same partners or same board members that are recruiting people. But because it was virtual, we have some board members that are no longer living in Nashville who shared it with their friends. So it was great to just open it up. And so they're responsible for recruiting the guests and educating the guests. So we can, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
Nope, sorry, that's exactly where I was gonna lead. I was gonna kind of prompt you into what type of materials and education did you provide them to share?
Yeah, so our table hosts, you have some sort of experience with Pencil as a board member, as a volunteer, as a parent of one of the students, as a teacher, as a spouse of a teacher. So they have some sort of connection to us, and they all have a different story. So we, as Pencil, can share our story as much as we want, but it's what's coming from their stories that is actually impactful to those people. So we encourage them to share their stories. And so the way that we made this year's virtual event more personal, because the breakfast is a personal networking event, is asking our table hosts to do more touch points. So text them during the event to make sure they're watching, wish them, tell them to have fun during the event, share your story during the event, that kind of thing. Connect with them after and say a thank you for all of those that donated. They're really just the point of contact for our table guests that could just further share our mission and what we were trying to articulate in their own words. And it's truly important to our breakfast, and I think they did an awesome job this year.
That is so exciting. I think so well done. And I'm curious too, so we have a screenshot. Oh, sorry, can we go back one slide? Apologize about that. On the screenshot, last thing here are some of the guides that you provided to your table captains. Can you quickly just kind of go over what information did you put on these guides that you sent to your table hosts?
Yeah, so we put some tips and tricks, so Q&As, frequently asked questions. So where's the money going to? What does Pencil do? How do they get involved? And then we also, so it was just a toolkit with just all of those tips, messages we want them to share. As you see in gold, in order to have this as a fundraiser, you have to emphasize we thought we had to emphasize the suggested minimum donation, because this is an education event, but this is also a fundraising event. So we wanted to make sure that they were being educated, but also knew it was a fundraising event. So just all the materials they needed. We have a hidden page on our website that table host received a page or a password to, which had email templates, had this timeline that you see, had the FAQs that I just talked about, and just different pencil resources, graphics they can share, really anything they need to facilitate, to ask questions, to be a great table host, they had access to.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's such valuable information, is, you know, what is on that communication. So thank you. The jumping into this slide can you quickly kind of just bullet out the run of show that you had? Kind of tell us, like, was it on Zoom and the logistics around it, but then deep dive into the networking part of this.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the breakfast is an introductory to pencil, and it's really important that it is a networking event for us, and allow other guests to chat with their hosts and we always have students there, chat with students, but because this was virtual, we were struggling with how to do that. We kept our beginning of our program the same, where we have welcoming remarks from our CEO. We have some event chairs speak. We have Dr. Battle, who is Director of Metro Nashville Public Schools. We have a brief award for someone that has been awesome in the community and has really been a great partner and advocate for our students. So we kept those things the same that we do in person, and we kept those virtual. The biggest change was how to make that touch point where people feel like they're hearing stories, and it's more of a personable experience.
Right.
So we ended up doing these breakout rooms, which you see here, which were led by staff, but also had a pencil partner, so a business partner that's in the schools, and a former Metro student who is now working with that pencil partner because of the relationship they established. So these groups were about a little less than 100 people. They were allowed to unmute. There is a brief Q&A in the beginning, but they could ask questions, they could engage, and it ended up being a huge success, and we were very proud with that.
That is thrilling. I know people are challenged with how to create interaction and networking in their events nowadays virtually. I'm curious, how long did the breakout rooms last, like time-wise, and just kind of overall reactions at the end to people who were involved in this?
Yeah, so they were 15 minutes. The first 10 minutes was the Q&A with the pencil staff person and the community partner and student. And I can't tell you how many text messages and emails we received saying how great the impact sessions, is what we were calling them, were, and saying that it was just a different Zoom. All of us are on Zooms 24/7, and it was just something a little bit more engaging that people were not used to. So I definitely suggest using the breakout room tool if you haven't.
Amazing. You were able to kind of beat that Zoom fatigue that we're feeling a little bit. I love it. And moving into a little bit of the live stream, and last slide for the breakfast, but you mentioned in one of our calls earlier about a challenge that you ran into during your live event. Can you kind of talk about that, and then maybe some wisdom that you took from that experience?
Definitely. So there's a capacity on Zoom accounts, and we thought we upped the right account, and we confirmed it. We did all the tests that we thought we did without actually allowing 300 people on the Zoom. Well, it ended up they put it on the wrong account. So we were only allowing 100 people in, and everybody else was getting kicked out or not allowed to get in, which was super stressful, but we ended up being able to fix it in 6 minutes. So we called someone from Zoom, they fixed it, got it on. We sent an email blast to everybody and said, hey, you're able to get in now. So luckily, I think we had about 320 people registered. I think at one time I saw 280 people in the Zoom. So it hopefully didn't deter people too much. So it was definitely a challenge. What I recommend is test stuff as much as possible. But even if you test stuff, you're probably going to run into a technical issue, which is okay. Everybody's so understanding. So just be transparent about it. As you can see right here, this is Angie, our CEO. She was super transparent, super casual about it. She's like, hey guys, we ran into an issue, and just talked about Pencil for a moment while we were getting it fixed on the back end. But I think the most important thing is make sure you have a team behind you. So Angie was the person, calm, cool, collected, and talking to our guests and sharing what was happening, while me and one of my other coworkers were running on the back end trying to fix everything and answering phone calls. So just make sure you use your team, and know that everybody has run into technical issues. So just be as cool as possible and be as transparent as possible, because everybody understands.
Yes, that is true wisdom right there. And you talked about your team a little bit too, and we've got actually a question in asking, how many staff did it take for your breakout room, and kind of what did your overall team look like to do something like this with the networking side and everything? So
we ended up having 3 breakout rooms. So we had 1 staff member in each breakout room, in addition to a few others that just joined the breakout room. And then I had 3 people, including myself. So I was the main admin, who was working on breakout rooms and any technology issues. And then I had 2 people monitoring to make sure that people were unmuted and muted when they needed to be, and allowing people in from the waiting room. And so I don't know if you guys have really experienced Zoom a lot, but they have awesome features. So there's a spotlight feature where you can focus on the person talking. So I had them helping with that. So we had really 6 people besides our CEO working on the back end and facilitating the breakout rooms.
Oh, Kylie, this is such valuable information. Thank you for sharing all of that. It's great how you were able to work with your team and, you know, have people dedicated to that technology in case something happened. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And on the right side of this screen, we're seeing a screenshot from the thermometer that you used during the donation moment that you had during this community impact breakfast. So I'm curious if you can kind of share what the guest experience was like from that side. How did they donate, and how did it go for you?
Yeah, so the giving moment was following our impact sessions. We had we had 2 of our event chairs kind of set up the moment. We shared a brief Pencil video, and then I scripted one of our event chairs to kind of introduce the giving moment. They received a text message right when he was speaking, so he referenced that text message. And for those of the people that didn't receive a text message, since we didn't have everybody's cell phone numbers, there is a thing on the thermometer, which you can't see right now, that said, hey, text this to this. So that was the biggest piece of our donation moment, is that text, and the ask that was happening while that text came across people's phones, and just really encouraging people to get out their phones, I think is beneficial during a virtual event, since most people are multitasking anyway. So just building on that. And so we pulled this donation screen up on screen after the event chair made the ask and after the text message came, and really just stalled for a few minutes. We had him share his story and why he invests in Pencil. The biggest thing, if you do put the thermometer on screen when you're Zooming, you have to refresh the page in order for people to see it grow. So that's just one tip I have for everybody. But it was a huge success.
That is a great tip. I think all of them are. As a person who, even using Zoom every day, still finds a way to have it crash on me all the time, I think awesome advice. And so I'm curious, Kylie, I mean, overall, from a results standpoint, you know, whether it's you or the board or just in general, you know, be it financial or donor reactions, you know, in terms of now that it's wrapped and you look back on it, you know, happy, unhappy results where you thought they would be, comparable to last year, or just kind of the overall feeling that you and your team have on how everything went here?
Yeah, I mean, my immediate reaction, I was devastated. We had the technology issues, but overall, it was an amazing event. I mentioned it earlier, I can't tell you how many people reached out after the event and said those impact sessions were so impactful, and it was so great to be a part of something so different and learn more about Pencil. So that was awesome. We ended up with 81 new donors from all over, mostly Nashville and the Nashville area, but still cool that we had people from Chicago, we had people from Colorado, I think we had one from Washington, so cool that we reached so many people. We ended up netting more than we have net in any previous breakfast, which I know we've only had 3, but I think that's pretty impressive. We weren't too short of, so I think last year we raised 57,000. This year we raised 48,000, but we net 48,200, which last year we net about 43,800, just knowing that we had the breakfast expense and other expenses that we didn't have this year. So I think overall our board was pleased, our staff was pleased, and we've gotten so many new volunteers and everything out of the event.
That is, kudos to you guys. And you did an amazing job. And you did an amazing job before what you just shared, and the fact that you were able to generate 81 new donors to communicate with going forward, and the net take home higher despite, the top line being a little bit lower because of the expense side, I think is awesome. And you guys did an awesome job. And we're gonna skip lunch here today in our conversation. And so we will be going from breakfast in the morning right to the evening time overall. So Susanna, let's kind of turn it back over to you to walk through the night of music and some of the cool stuff that happened here.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay, so moving into the night of music, this is the big pivot moment for Pencil. Kylie, will you kind of set up the story here? Tell us what this event is for Pencil, and then how you decided to move forward with it.
Yeah, so this is our largest fundraiser of the year. It is an incredible night, and it is something that people really look forward to, or they have for the last 16 years. So we were devastated when we couldn't be in person, but knew we had to keep it alive in some way. So we did end up postponing it from April to June. And in June, we were still hoping we would pull out an in-person event and it would be awesome. I think it was 2.5 weeks out, we decided to go virtual, which if you have a chance to make that decision sooner, please do so, because it saves you it saves you. But we ended up going virtual. So the concert typically is at the Grand Ole Opry. We have some cocktails, we have silent auction, and it's really a whole night. It's 4 hours. It's just people networking, talking with one another, and then the last portion of the event is we have 2 performers. So last year was Tim McGraw, and they're on stage. We are all sitting on stage at the Grand Ole Opry. So it's a very intimate performance, even though we are at the Grand Ole Opry and it's such a huge space. So we were trying to figure out the best way to do it this year, since it is such an intimate performance and such an event that people look forward to. So because it is a bigger event and we didn't have a lot of time, we ended up doing it all pre-recorded, or majority of it pre-recorded. We kept the same pieces where we had the silent auction. We had our speakers in the beginning. We had our CEO, we had an MC, we had our honorary chairs, we had auction. So we didn't do a live auction portion this year because we, like I mentioned, it was pre-recorded and we couldn't figure out that live piece. So we did featured auction items during the program. So that was our way of highlighting those bigger items and having our MC talk about those. And then we ended with a performance from Tommy Shaw. And the biggest difference, I guess, with that this year is instead of having two performers and them just perform, Tommy had more of a production, so he shared stories behind the songs, and it was we did a Q&A for our top dollar sponsors where they got to answer questions, or they got to ask him questions and he had to answer them and say their name on video. And then we did end up doing the very end piece live so that our CEO could share a final thanks and our final fundraising number.
Perfect. Thank you for going through all of the elements, and we'll dive into kind of the patron party section at the end of this of how you kind of split this event. But jumping in, Tommy Shaw, so you had a concert in this. Can you talk through the difference between an in-person concert and a virtual concert? What are some of the barriers that you hit, and how would you encourage people to kind of, I don't know about them and get through them?
Yeah, I would say one of them was alleviated by us pre-recording. So there's a lot of things that come into play with a performer playing live. So that's one of the reasons that we ended up doing it pre-recorded. I would definitely encourage you to give them more than 2.5 weeks to actually record the video and get that to you, because I think I was creating the pre-recorded video the night before and it was very stressful. So I definitely encourage to get that as soon as possible if you are doing it pre-recorded. And pre-recorded isn't the only option. Definitely think that you could do it live, and but it was easier because he was at his house, and I can't remember where his house is, but he was at his house and we were at our home, so it was it worked out. And sorry, I went off track there, but I wanted to touch on how we got Tommy Shaw as our performer, just because I feel like that's super important. Is Creative Artists Agency. We have had a board member from Creative Artists Agency on our executive board for several years, and they originally created this event as a fundraiser for us 16 years ago. And then somewhere in there, I think it was like year 5, it transitioned to pencil planning it. But Creative Artists Agency is our presenting sponsor, and they recruit the talent every year and really work on managing that relationship. So they were the ones communicating with Tommy to make sure he could do the video. So another challenge we ran into with just the performance is because we received the video from him and we had articulated that it was not going to be recorded because it was in person when we originally asked, we couldn't share the recording with anybody. So definitely, if you have an artist, I would encourage you to ask that, because I think a recording is such an awesome thing that you can share with people unable to attend.
Fantastic. That is so much valuable information, and I love the relationship status there. And we're going to jump into that with Kendra Scott on this right side, but quickly on the left, just a note for everyone looking at this. Something that Pencil did, which I loved, is they use the ads on the GiveSmart site to sprinkle in their item redemption notes. So this played out throughout their entire site. And I just wanted to share that tidbit with anyone because I just think it is genius. But continuing with kind of relationships here, what stood out to us is this Kendra Scott jewelry set. And for those who are listening who don't know who Kendra Scott is, it's a national jewelry and more retailer that has a huge mission of giving back. So Kylie, just wanted to quickly hear, how important is that relationship to keep during this time and kind of working with an organization that has such a strong mission of giving back?
Yeah, they are fabulous, and our relationship with them is beyond just silent auction items. So originally, where our relationship started is education is one of their pillars that they find, or that they support highly, and so they had reached out to see if we wanted to do a brunch with them. So we promoted the brunch, and it was really a sale during the brunch, and Pencil received part of the proceeds, and from there our relationship really grew. And they have now gone into some of our high schools to talk to high school students that are interested in marketing or retail, owning their own business, jewelry, just any of that stuff. So Kendra Scott is just one example of a company that is so interested in giving back, and they're so into having a conversation with you to see your needs and support you however works best for you. So if that is having an in-store fundraiser or by providing you an auction item, but super important to keep those relationships because you never know where they might go.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? Even during the unknown times, just keeping the relationships, finding different ways to kind of partner with organizations to benefit everyone is so great. I'm glad. And just a note, in the chat, we just put a silent auction study, which shows the analytics kind of that we're seeing at GiveSmart behind silent auctions. So if you're interested, check that out. And then we'll move right into this. You also did a wine poll during your night of music, and you had a surprise element to the wine poll. Can you tell us about that and how it was received?
Yeah, so Southwest Airlines is a huge partner with Pencil. They partner with their schools, and they are always supporting our events as an in-kind sponsor. But they gave us 2 round-trip tickets to be our surprise item to this, because they're all about surprise and delight. But everybody purchased a bottle for $25. It was a miscellaneous bottle, so that's fun already. So it could be worth $25 or it could be worth $80. It was kind of a fun surprise. And then also during everybody who purchased a bottle was put into a hat, and during the program, our MC pulled a name and they won those 2 Southwest tickets as the surprise and delight. So it was just an added bonus. We did open the wine pool up 2 weeks in advance of our A Little Night of Music, and almost 100% of our wine bottles were sold before the concert itself.
Fantastic. I love that it already sold. Like, adding the second element always just enhances it, right?
Definitely.
Moving away from the night of music. So in the beginning, you kind of talked about this patron party, and in the beginning, when you sold these tickets and it was supposed to be in person, you sold this extra level, I guess, for this patron party. And then you decided to hold this back even further beyond a night of music. So can you kind of tell us about that decision and really define what is a patron party for people who may not know?
Yeah, so a patron party, we have offered this with a Little Night of Music, I believe all 16 years, but they're big in Nashville. It's a pre-event party where people get to network. It's an intimate event that's usually at one of our patrons' houses. So it's usually no more than 100 people. This year we had about 150 people signed up. There's cocktails, there are artists. It's just kind of a fun night in someone's backyard. And it's really big in Nashville, and it's kind of the piece that they get the preview to the A Little Night of Music auction. They get just a pre-celebration, so that's why it's an additional $100. And it's a big hit for a lot of our folks that are passionate Pencil supporters.
Sure.
So this year we were hoping we could still have it in person. Hoping if we delayed it until this fall, things would open up and we'd be able to have a event with about 100 people. Well, since things are still where they're at and we're not sure when we can have that many people in a room, and 2021's A Little Night of Music is just around the corner, we decided we were going to switch it to virtual, but we didn't want it to be just a normal virtual event. So we are doing a concert portion by Kylie Morgan, who is a creative artist agency client, and she's also a part of the CMT team, who CMT is our presenting sponsor, so it's just a great combination. And then we're ending the event with a cider beer tasting. So one of our local breweries, they are always a sponsor of our event, and we're excited to help us lead the cider beer tasting and test it out in a virtual event.
Yes, awesome. And in the next slide, we'll go through that. But one last thing here. I'm curious, in this program that you do for a patron party, is this the type of event where you do a donation ask or some sort of appeal moment?
No, so our patrons are typically people that support Pencil all year long. So this event is more of a thank you. And so it's a pre-event thank you usually, where it's a pre-event celebration. This time we're just using it as a thank you for supporting us even during the hard times. So we do not have a donation ask for this event.
No, that is helpful. Kylie, I'm curious to ask you a question that I think there's a lot of people who fall into the same boat that you mentioned, where, hey, this was going to be in person, so let's delay it and let's wait and see what happens. And then later comes and, okay, we have to make a decision because now, you know, if I'm not mistaken, I think in April every year is when you have the night of music. So that's just right around the corner. And so you run the risk of cannibalizing that or you know, losing some of the momentum. So was this decision to do it virtual, was it easy for the team to make, or you know, was it a potential to, hey, let's scrap it or, you know, go? Because I think there's so many people who did that exact same thing. Let's delay, let's wait and see. And now that wait and see moment has arrived. And I think a lot of people are now at the second stage of decision making where, okay, I don't know what to do again. So I'm curious just how the decision making process internally went for you and the team.
Yeah, so for the virtual patron party, I think it was an easy decision because of the conversations we've had with the patrons. So for every single event we have turned virtual. It's never a staff decision. We really lean on our board to tell us what their comfort level is, what they think we should do. So really leaning on those resources, since they are probably the ones that connected us to those sponsors, or they're the ones that are the patrons. So really just leaning on our resources and our folks that have never led us wrong, to help us make those decisions. So it's never a hard decision, it's just having conversations.
No, perfect. I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, perfect there. And so we'll end with a cheers here. And so you mentioned the cider party. So just talk a little bit about the logistics behind that. How do people get the cider? How does this work in the back end for anyone who's considering doing this?
Yeah, so Nashville has some strict alcohol shipping policies, so we had to be very careful about that. But so we have about 150 patrons. I think about 100 people have RSVP'd. So I actually am currently sitting in a room full of beer right now. So tomorrow we will be packing the beer into 4-packs with some tasting glasses and some pencil flyers and just a little bag that says tasting kit on it. And then Monday and Tuesday, pencil staff again. I work with a great team. They're fabulous. We're going to divide and conquer and get all of the bags out. We're lucky that all of them are local.
Amazing. And final question here I'll ask is, after you've done your pivot, you've pivoted multiple events, wrapping up here, is there any advice or pointers you have from someone who's maybe just getting started on this journey?
I would say I have a lot, but I would definitely say use your resources, ask questions. Someone has probably done something, so reach out to them. Everybody's willing to help. If I've learned anything during quarantine, it's we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So cool that so many people are open to help and lend a hand. And then just know anything you want is possible virtual. You just have to transition it a little bit. So use your board members, use colleagues, use friends. I often am bouncing ideas off my boyfriend just to be like, hey, would you attend a virtual event like this? So just use the people around you because everybody's willing to help.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. That beer also sounds great. So between those two things, that's an awesome way to end that portion. So Kylie and Susanna, we'll give you guys a chance to catch your breath, maybe sharpen some pencils. Got to get a pun in where I can. But Matt, if we did breakfast, then we just talked about nighttime for dinner. I'll toss it over to you for some data, dessert, and some interesting points that you've seen lately here.
Yeah, great. So thanks. And you just heard it. We're all in this together, and no more important than that is social media. So we're big fans of data here. And if you look at the data on the left here, this is for August 2020. 85% of traffic using Google Analytics came from Facebook. So just a really like the heavy hitter in the room, Facebook, as outreach. Twitter and Instagram rounding out the top 3. And then if you look on the right-hand side, we took a look at the same period in 2019 and 2020 and just looked at the overall growth that the social media platforms have. So the big takeaway here is really use social media. You're no longer bound using these virtual events by like a venue capacity. So really blast out as much as you can. Different social media applications reach different demographics. It's an easy way to get out there and just really hit it home. And another important thing that's becoming huge now is peer-to-peer. So using social media to really pump out the peer-to-peer, using your network to create their campaigns and like their donation champions is what, the GiveSmart platform has that really allows you to expand your reach. But that's just one avenue, and really use social media to, the fullest to really hit that digital reach. Great. So, in this particular slide, a question that I get a lot and that we're hearing a lot is, are auctions working? Are events working? Are these virtual events working? Is it worth having an event, or should we push it to next year? And if we look at the chart on the left, the gray line takes a look at all campaigns from January to August of this year. So the percent of users donating really spiked in April, and have slightly tapered off lightly, but they're still over, up over the beginning of the year, which is fantastic. Same with, the percent of users bidding. We've seen a steady trend pretty much since April and continuing on. So it is worth, hosting your event, if you can, really, engage your donors. And then the chart on the right is showing the bids per user. And that's a really fantastic chart to look at and data set, because it's really nice to get one person to donate once. We'll take everything, of course, but to get several users to bid several times on multiple items is really, that's, how what social media does. It's the donor engagement. This shows that it's working. So we really encourage, utilizing everything and really taking, those with the means are going to give. Those without, we're not, we don't expect them to, but there are so many that are looking to give right now. And then this last one in particular is we took, how are people doing finance-wise? And I think Kylie hit it on the head earlier when she was talking about the breakfast, is we took several clients and looked at, the percentage, raised in 2019 versus 2020, and then the amount of difference in the year-over-year growth. And while at first it seems like there's some negative numbers there, is the overall net is higher. There's less overhead, venues, catering, food, alcohol. So exactly like Kylie said, it's, you might, not raise as much top line, but the takeaway that the organizations are keeping is really fantastic. And that's a trend that we're seeing, pretty frequently now.
That is awesome stuff, Matt, across the board. And I think definitely some encouraging trends over there. So before we open it up to question and answers, quick reminder, we have upcoming webinars next week, which will be our second to last Outside the Room series next Thursday, as well as on the 23rd of September, talking about managing more, some campaigns you can run to close the year-end gap. And similar to those, you can register, and similar to today's call, you can register and receive according. And then newer thing that we have is our GiveSmart community and community roundtable discussions led by Susanna. So Susanna, can you tell us a little bit more about the roundtable and why people should consider joining the two that we have on screen here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Patrick. The roundtable discussions are hour-long Zoom calls with small groups of your peers. So just a group of us getting together. We do a round robin discussion of successes and challenges, and then we just have it open Q&A and really find tailored resources to you. We've heard this is the most valuable resource that a lot of organizations have found. And if you're interested, you can sign up in the follow-up email after this call. So super excited to meet you.
Perfect. So with that, I will get my auctioneer voice ready to go. As we've gotten a lot of questions, so keep sending them in. Anything that we can't get to today, we will cover in the resources as we follow up. So Kylie, the first question to you for the Cider, are you alerting people via text or email that deliveries will be between X and Y time, or how is that communication being handled?
Yeah, so we'll send emails to everybody Each staff member will receive their list of 10 people, and we'll send an email because all of us are working around our own schedules. So like I'm doing mine on Mondays from 9 till 2 probably. So I'll definitely send my folks an email.
No, that is great. And then another question, Kylie, for you is talking about the digital coupons that you and Susanna were talking about before. Were those provided to all sponsors or just sponsors that gave, above a certain threshold?
So the digital, that was our $5,000 one. So they're only one company. I think there's opportunity to do more than that. We just tried it for the first time this year, and I would definitely recommend it as a benefit.
That's perfect. And then I guess Susanna or Kylie or Matt, I know you deal with this stuff. Question is about how did you integrate the GiveSmart registrations in the Zoom live event? And so I think more than anything, where you have people registering on system A, but then you're going to use Zoom or YouTube Live or some of these other services, and kind of how do you manage getting all those lists together and making sure that the right people show up and are invited and all that good stuff?
So for what I do is I always export what's in GiveSmart and then just send emails from my personal account because we track everything in Salesforce. I don't know if anybody else does, but that's the reason that I send stuff from my personal account, is so I can be tracking it in our other data places. But I'm sure there's other ways that people can do it, but that's definitely where I had them register on GiveSmart. I had them put their guest names in GiveSmart. And then I exported all of that and sent emails from my personal email and sent them the link to Zoom through that.
Yeah, and I would just add there too, GiveSmart does have the capability to email or text message directly from the site. So you can send your Zoom link directly out through one of those forces as well.
That is a great comment. And I know this was another question, but we did, somebody did ask, and all of the campaigns that we showed, Kylie and her team did through the system, and we'll be able to make sure we send a link to the various campaigns so you can kind of see a little bit more in action. But Kylie, another question for you in regards to sponsors, and it is with current economic circumstances, we've had a lot of trouble confirming sponsors, and we hear a lot of, we're not sponsoring right now because we don't know what's happening with our own business. So how have you worked with your donors and sponsors to kind of work around that? I know we talked about Kendra Scott or some of the other sponsors, but how have you guys adapted your sponsorship relations given everything that's happening at the moment?
I would say everything is more of a personal conversation with everybody. I know personally I struggled to ask once everything had just hit. We were hit by a tornado, and then coronavirus hit, so it felt like all of our businesses were double impacted. So I was struggling with that ask at first. So we started with very casual conversations, and how are you guys doing? How are you feeling? Is it possible for you guys to sponsor this? Or what does your year look like? So we really just had sponsors or conversations with everybody in the very beginning about all of our events, and just feeling out how much they can give this year, if anything, would they be interested? And we gave them a list of all of our events and the timeline, and if you're going to sponsor one instead of all three this year, which one? We've definitely had more one-on-one conversations with sponsors than we ever have. For the breakfast, we actually exceeded our sponsorship goal. We did a revised goal after coronavirus hit, and we exceeded that because we reached out to different networks that were not just our typical partners that we typically go to. So our event chairs played a big role in that. We got a lot of tech companies and engineering companies, as opposed to the entertainment restaurant businesses we usually go to.
That is awesome information. I appreciate, again, your candor. I mean, similar to talking about the Zoom of, it's one thing to say all of the things at the end, it was great, but I think it is a struggle, and a lot of people find themselves in that spot. So Matt or Susanna, question for you is, how can we expand our current network of donors through GiveSmart? We feel like we've exhausted our current pool of people with the messaging we've had this far.
Yeah, I can take a first swing at that. So I think one, Matt just mentioned the peer-to-peer champions campaign that we have. So you can have your network ask their network to bring them in. I think, you know, the impact breakfast is a great example of that. Doing table hosts is a different way to do that. Have them invite people to your event and then do some sort of event that just tells about who you are. Get them involved. Another kind of off to the side way of doing it is if you have an event that is kind of fun or different and there's local groups or chapters who do something like that, maybe invite them. So an example is like a virtual walk, finding walking groups or running clubs in your local area and seeing if they have interest in joining in on your event. So reaching out, seeing what other types of networks are within your community.
Yeah, I agree with Suzanne, everything she said. You know, one of the things that we saw on the slide earlier is that, you know, not just Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but LinkedIn, you know, talk to the sponsors, you know, let them use their networks, like she mentioned, for like, you know, to spread not only just any campaign, but really, you know, YouTube is another big one too now, that people are engaging, but, you know, either through a peer-to-peer or like your standard campaign, or even like just a donation campaign. And like Suzanne also said, partner with, you know, your local community restaurants that have been hardly hit hard, you know, partner with them to see if they can provide something and, you know, and make it appealing to your guests.
That is great. One of my favorite things I've seen in sponsor relations is organizations who are kind of partnering in different ways. And the restaurant ones where, hey, we'll give your donors 20% off. So your donors, you get to reach out to them about something, and you're not necessarily asking them for funds or engaging them in a different way. It benefits the sponsor. So I think finding ways to make it a two-way beneficial relationship, I think, is a good part. But with that, time flew here today. So a lot of awesome information. A quick final note that at the end of the call, you'll see a survey that if you could please take a quick moment to give us your feedback, as it helps us shape the content, which we want to be impactful for you. So please take a moment and, you know, really, truly, Kylie, again, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations to you and your team for some awesome stuff you guys have done lately.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Matt and Susanna, again, thanks to two of you as well for sharing your insight and some awesome advice for folks.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, thanks.
And last, but certainly not least, thanks to all of you for joining. We are very much in your corner here at GiveSmart, and then know you too can emulate the success that Kylie and her team have found. And so don't hesitate to reach out if we can help in any way as you continue towards your goals and hopefully end up in the We May Surpass It group in the poll. And with that, thanks again and have a great rest of the day.